Exposed. Exposed. Woo. Exposed. Yeah. Ha. You exposed, bitch. You exposed. If you got no games, you exposed, bitch. You exposed. You exposed. You exposed, bitch. You exposed.
What is up, guys? Ncaa 31 here. Happy New Year. Happy 2015. If you were like me, you were watching lots and lots of college football. And if you were watching lots and lots of college football, you saw the mighty SEC take it on the chin. Now, I'm sure that satisfies a lot of people. I know a lot of people are sick and tired about hearing how great the SEC is, and many folks like to see the SEC, take one. I don't really care. I don't troll the SEC, but it's been a while since we've had an exposed video, and it seemed appropriate. It seemed like the right thing to do. I mean, if you can't do an exposed video on the SEC after yesterday, when can you ever do one? If it wasn't for Georgia and Texas A&M, I mean, you would have just had carnage all the way around. I see Tennessee. I'm watching Tennessee and Iowa. Tennessee's up pretty big. So you have Tennessee, Georgia, and Texas A&M preserving the honor of the SEC after the mighty SEC West, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Auburn, Alabama. They took L's. LSU. I'm going to start with LSU first. I really want to know how LSU fan resists the urge to burn down Les Miles and Cam Cameron's homes. Or if they see him out in the street in public, resist the urge to just walk up to them and slap them in the head. I mean, Les Miles has become an out-and-out cartoon character, the stuff that he does. And Cam Cameron, I don't get Cam Cameron at all. I mean, last year you have 3 NFL players. You have Odell Beckham, Zach Mettenberger, and what's his name, Jeremy Hill, and you can't score. How is that possible? To have 3 skill position NFL caliber talents and have an offense that just rots. And I know that Mettenberger's a bit of a weird dude, but he's a talented kid. He's got ability. And then yesterday, Leonard Fournette is the best player on the football field by a mile. And he does my Fighting Irish a favor of only giving him 11 touches. I mean, thank you. Thanks for that. I really appreciate it. I'm sure Notre Dame did as well with their depleted defense. And as far as Notre Dame goes and the quarterbacks, it's headed toward a weird situation. You've got 2 quarterbacks, and you just kind of wish you could blend the strengths of both of them into one player. I think Malik Zaire is not the athlete that Everett Golson is, but he's the better runner. He has a feel for the option game that Everett doesn't have. Everett makes bad decisions in the read option game all the time. Malik, it's more natural to him. If you ever saw the offense he ran in high school, it would make sense as to why. But Malik seems to be the savvier guy and a guy with a better feel for the game, while Everett is a guy with more talent. He's faster. He's got a liver arm. All that stuff. What I want them to do from here is to pick one. Go all in with one of them. If Everett has to transfer, he has to transfer. Don't do this 2 QB crap going into the spring. It never works. I don't want to hear about no 2 QB system. Pick one and go all in. Georgia Tech and Mississippi State. The only people who are surprised at Georgia Tech marking the ball up and down the field against a big bad SEC defense are people that don't watch Georgia Tech or don't understand how their offense works. And watching that game, I was happy to hear the announcers talk about that offense sensibly. It's more than just quote-unquote playing assignment football. That actually works in their favor. They want you to do that. They want you to be sitting there being obsessed with your keys while they're cut blocking you and running a misdirection somewhere. The way you deal with that offense is you have to attack it. You have to attack it downhill, get penetration into the backfield. You have to have a hoss in the middle that can take away the A gap and allow your speed to cut off the perimeter. You basically have to defend them the way that the Miami Hurricanes used to give Tom Osborne's teams fits. They had guys like Vince Wilfork and Warren Sapp that could blow up the dive and speed at linebacker and in the defensive backfield to rally to anything wide. That's your best chance of slowing that offense down. You gotta get them playing behind the line of scrimmage or you have no chance. You'll be giving up 400 yards rushing for the game, which is exactly what happened. They ran for 450 and had 577 overall. Now, I didn't think that Georgia Tech would stop Mississippi State either, and they didn't. They had 600 yards of total offense, but they had a couple of turnovers, and when you're giving up 8 yards per carry and 10 yards per pass attempt, you're not winning the game. You combine that with a couple of turnovers, and away you go. You're not going to beat anybody with your defense playing like that. Ole Miss. Ole Miss. You want to show up with a game, please? One of the strange phenomenons about bowl season is that sometimes you get a team that just isn't ready to play. They just don't show up. You saw that with Arizona. How do you let Boise State hit the Statue of Liberty play against you? Come on now. Come on. It wasn't that long ago. A little bit of history, please, people. But anyway, Ole Miss, Bull Wallace, you suck. Ole Miss, you're a fraud. You're a paper tiger. You got exposed. You're going to be in probation within 3 years. Everyone knows that you sold your soul to the devil to get these recruiting classes the past couple of years. So enjoy Devontae Kincaid while you can and before the NCAA invades your campus. You can't get on Auburn too much against Wisconsin. That was a coin flip game, really. I mean, Melvin Gordon, again, best player in the building. And unlike Les Miles, they were smart enough to ride him into the ground. He had something like 35 carries, and, you know, when you're up against a team that can't stop anybody, and you got the best player in the stadium, you just ride him like a rented mule. And if you want to talk about bad defense, you're giving up 400 yards rushing to basically power left, power right, wash, rinse, repeat. You got problems. You got serious problems. And I think Muschamp will actually do them a world of good. Muschamp can coach a defense. He's one of these guys who you don't want him running the entire team, but give him one side of the ball and let him live there, he'll be just fine. And speaking of which, let's go to Alabama now. Is this what Alabama is now? An offensive team that can't stop anybody? Have they become that now? They've been giving up big points in big spots for a couple of years now. They get thrown on deep a lot. That used to never happen. I would bet money that they've given up more plays downfield, have had more coverage busts in the back end in the past 2 seasons than the previous 5 combined. They haven't been able to generate a base pass rush in a couple of years now. They don't cover in the back end nearly as well. And, it's for the obvious reasons. You've had a flood of Alabama defensive players, linebackers and defensive backs especially, all over the NFL draft. You just can't replace those people. It's impossible. You can't do it. You can't sustain that forever. The fact that they were able to sustain a nice 4 or 5 year run is incredible. Look at the mess that Florida State's defense has been all year long. But the key to that game for me, the way I saw it, is that they let Cardale Jones run the ball. Cardale Jones didn't really do all that much throwing. I mean, he was opportunistic. When he hit, he really hit. He really hit downfield. And he got lucky a couple of times. That's going to happen in every game. You're going to get some lucky bounces here and there. But he was able to run the ball just enough to be a factor. And I think that was as responsible for Ezekiel Elliott being able to go off like he did as much as anything. It's really tough to run a spread, what I call a true spread, as opposed to an air raid or run and shoot where you're just all in the passing game type of offense. But to run a spread offense, it's really tough to run a spread with a quarterback that can't run. He doesn't have to be a 4 or 5 guy, but he has to be someone who can at least make the defense and not forget about him entirely. Defensively, they did well enough. I mean, in these college games, it's really hard to play consistent defense. It really is. They did a good enough job in coverage. I mean, Amari Cooper had 9 catches, but averaged 8 yards a catch. What do you damn do? You'll take that any day of the week against a guy who's by far the best receiver in college football. And Blake Sims threw 3 interceptions, and that's enough. So we're going to have Ohio State and Florida State in the national championship game. Florida State just had the game snowball on them. You know, when Oregon gets in rhythm, and when you combine that with just committing a comical amount of turnovers, that's going to happen. I mean, Florida State, without the turnovers, I think would have played well enough to compete. They moved the ball pretty nicely, but you just can't turn the ball over like that. I mean, some of them were this side of the Mark Sanchez butt fumble bad, just terrible. And God bless the team that picks either one of those two quarterbacks in the top 5 in the draft. I don't like either one of those dudes in the NFL. I'm sorry. I just don't see it for either one of them. But hey, someone's going to take them. Teams are so starved for quarterbacks that if there are quarterbacks coming out any given year, they're going to be picked and picked very, very high. It's just the nature of the beast. But that's another video for another day. I'm going to go into that later on as far as why I don't like either one of them. But hope you guys enjoyed this vid from my offline dynasty, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.